Well, at the moment we're at a place called Ellensbrook, and what Ellensbrook is in the early days in the 1850s, the Bussell family, who Busselton's named after, in southwestern Australia. This is where they first settled in a house, and there's a spring here, and that's where they used to get the water from. And the husband called the spring after his wife Ellen, so it's called Ellen's Brook. So obviously a brook means a spring, and so the spring gave them water, and they arrived here in 1857 with an Aboriginal guide and their 3 daughters, and they just lived here and farmed the land, and that's about it. So in a minute we're going to go and have a look at the house, and I'll tell you what I can tell about it. But it used to be this whole area used to be an Aboriginal summer camping ground, and so obviously when the Bussells came here they would have had to interact with the Aboriginals, but there's no record of fighting or wars or anything like that. So let's go and we'll go and have a look at this old pioneer house that's been here since 1857. As you can see as we're walking towards it, I kind of love coming to these old properties. Always, you know, a bit of imagination. It's like you can hear the people of the past here. You can imagine that families used to play out here, and you know, when you get on Google Earth and things, I do a bit of metal detecting, and one of the things you look for out in the bush is trees that have been introduced, and from a distance you can see this big pine tree. Now this would have been here since the Bussells were here, and these pine trees were imported from England. And so this is always a telltale sign that a house used to be here, or if you are out in the bush. But you know, I kind of think that, you know, the families, the kids used to play under these trees, and you know, they probably, who knows, some of this area here they probably grew food. They probably had cattle, maybe had some sheep, and would have grown a few vegetables. I'm not sure if that tree there could be an old fig tree. And as you can see in the distance is the house. So let's go and have a bit of a look and see what that's about. So it's always interesting, these old places. Now we can see a few old pictures in there. I think they've kept it to look a little bit like the old house. Let's continue on. Oh, this is amazing. Now I think this part here is obviously been built on at a later time. But here's the original house, and wow, just have a look at some of this old roof that's been here for, well, since 1857. It's quite amazing, really. Old brickwork. There's nothing in these rooms today, but so it's very interesting. You know, when I come to these places, I've travelled around Australia quite a lot, and you come to these places and often many of them have the old furniture and the kitchen, everything set up. They just have it to look like the family just got up and left everything behind. And you know, you think about all the conversations that were had right where I'm standing, all the children playing on the ground, all the stories that were told round tables. They're the things that fascinate me very much. Anyway, let's just we'll have a bit more of a look, bit of a walk around. It's always very good. So I'll just turn the camera around, you can have a look at this. So here's the old water wheel. Now in the old days this probably drove, it's got some gearing on there, so as the water passed and turned this wheel, it probably would have driven some kind of machinery for making flour or doing all sorts of things. And you can see they've diverted the water around to come down and work this piece of machinery. And that old wheel there from 1857 or later, but it's been there a long time, this old fence. And here we have this brook, and as I mentioned to you earlier, old Bustle, his wife was named Ellen, and so he called this Ellen's Brook, and that is why the area is called Ellen's Brook, because it was this natural spring that gave them water. It would have fed their, watered their cattle, their sheep and things, and because really we are quite close to the coast here, so if this wasn't here you just couldn't live here. Old chimney stack, I'm sure in there there'd be where they used to cook their dinners. Just so many things. Now this looks like certainly some of the original part of the building. So you imagine all the families, all the stories, all the the pioneers that lived here, the Bustles, of whom Bustleton is named. When we were coming down we talked about Bustleton, and I presume it probably would have been called Bustle Town, but for whatever reason they call it Bustleton. And but yeah, it's quite interesting. Quite interesting. Such a it's funny. It's like you can hear the silence of the voices that once lived here, if you understand what I mean. I thought I'd take a minute to show you some of these fences, how they were shaped. Now these fences have been here for a century. And notice how they've cut notches into the fence post. And you just lift that up. And you lift up the top one. And you can pull them out and they kind of act like a gate. It's quite clever. It's quite good. Now this obviously used to be part of their garden. But here's another telltale sign. English flame trees. Now they would have been bought here. When the early pioneers came, they bought lots of seeds of different kinds of trees and fruit trees. And of course they planted them in their gardens because they were a source of food, but I don't know, probably a bit of comfort from home. But it's certainly a lovely place. Be very peaceful living here. But I sometimes think we live in such a complicated life these days. We've got to worry about bills, we have to worry about saving money, all these things in life to worry about. But when you look at living in this house, how simple it would have been. You wouldn't have worried about that. You would have had animals to eat, grow your fruit and vegetables. It just would have been peaceful life, just content. You didn't have to go up to Coles or Woolworths to buy things. You just had it here. You'd probably sell a bit of meat and go to the local place where you could trade for a bit of flour and whatnot. And by gee, sometimes we think we're living in a good world, but how much more simple would it be just living back in them days? I just thought I'd show you something interesting. It's probably not from the old days, but this tree here is some kind of fruit tree. I'm not sure what it is, but see how they've put these pieces of tin on here. And the purpose of this tin is that maybe there's rats or some kind of animals around here that like this fruit. So what they do is they put these pieces of tin around the trunk, and what it does is it stops the animals getting up the tree trunk and getting to the fruit. Pretty clever idea, pretty simple. There's this big pine tree. Now let me tell you something. There's something about big structures, because big structures always, a tree like this would have been a tree where children would have played under. And let me tell you, so I do a bit of metal detecting, and I'll tell you what, there'll be things under this tree in there, coins and bits and bobs that have been left there for 100 years that have probably never been found. And of course, you're not allowed in here to metal detect in a heritage site. But you know, if only this tree could talk, just imagine what stories it could tell. Quite good, quite a big tree. Certainly been here from the very beginning.